We should go ahead. All right. I think we all know we're in a drought. So we're going to move on then to item number 7.
Stage 3 drought update.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Kelly Dyer. I'm the water supply manager, and I will be giving a quick update on our stage 3 drought. First, we'll go over the weather forecast, then review community conservation and water demands, review our water supply strategy, Lake Kachuma operations, a few capital projects, and our water conservation program. So the National Weather Service provides a 3-month look ahead for our weather. This is a chart of our projected precipitation over the next few months, and in our area they're showing equal chances of above normal, normal or below average rainfall. One of the things with a strong El Nino that we've heard is that in Southern California it historically has shown greater than or above normal rainfall for Southern California. It's sort of a mixed bag for Northern California. This shows our projected temperatures over the next 3 months, and they are projected to be warmer than normal. This is a picture of El Nino. On the left-hand side shows the strongest El Nino on record, which was in 1997. On the right-hand side shows our current El Nino, and so the El Nino is really this warmer ocean temperatures across the equator. What's different this time around is we've got warmer ocean temperatures off of North America, and this is what is known as the blob. Since we have never observed this condition, nobody really knows what that's going to mean. So right now there's a lot of media attention on this where it's called Godzilla versus the blob. Godzilla being El Nino and the blob being that northern warm ocean temperatures, and we're not really sure what that's going to mean. So for community conservation, this chart shows a summary of our conservation savings for the last water year. The left-hand side shows the drought target, which was 25% conservation. The state target was 12% conservation for our community, and that's because our water demands were already pretty, we were using water efficiently going into the drought, so we had a lower target than some other areas of the state. And then the right side of the chart shows our actuals, and we've exceeded our goals, both the city goals as well as the state goals, and we're really proud of that. This is the monthly demands over the last year. The red line shows our actuals. The blue line is our target, so we've gone beyond our target, particularly in the last few months over the summer. We've had a 33% reduction in water demands for September and have had 36% cumulative savings since the Stage 3 drought declaration. So we have now entered into the next water year, which began October 1st. We're now in year 5 in our drought. And the big differences between this year and last year, we are now using our Kachuma carryover, which is the blue bar here. We did not receive any allocation from Kachuma this year, so all that is remaining is what we had in storage from previous year's allocations. We are working on a couple of groundwater projects to increase our groundwater supply compared to last year. And then we're also relying on water purchases. These have already been secured and are in San Luis. We also have our recycled water plant coming online this fall. In terms of how this will be used on a monthly basis, right now our Kachuma water supply is subject to evaporation, any carryover subject to evaporation. So we're trying to use this first before we lose it, and then bring down our water purchases in the coming months. Probably December, January timeframe is when we'll start sending that water after we've used more of our Kachuma water. So Lake Kachuma operations, this is a chart showing our current storage versus the last drought in the late 80s and early 90s. So the green line is the 86 to 93 period, and we are currently right here in the current droughts. Our storage is about 32,000 acre feet in Kachuma. A big difference this time around is that we now have state water, which is conveyed through Kachuma. And also this time around, we have a biological opinion. In the last drought, we did not have fish releases, according to a biological opinion. So those are the two big differences, but our storage is tracking very closely to what it did last time. This year, we are possibly approaching lake levels we've never seen before, however. So this is uncharted territory once the lake levels drop below this point. Our current capacity is 32,000 acre feet. That's about 16.7% of capacity. For the city, we are assuming we'll have about 3,200 acre feet that we'll use this year. That's assuming a 20% evaporation loss from what we have in the water accounting. I will say one of the issues that we're facing with Kachuma is that the physical evaporation is greater than what's actually accounted for. So our water accounting at Combe is only about 30% of the total evaporation that actually occurs at the reservoir. This hasn't been an issue historically because whenever we had a 25,000 acre foot allocation from Kachuma, there was additional water in the reservoir that could evaporate. And we're approaching a point now where we're all bean counting. Whatever is left in the reservoir is already accounted for. It belongs to somebody, whether it's downstream water rights or the Kachuma member units or it's the minimum pool. And there isn't an accounting mechanism that will account for 100% of the evaporation. All of the accounting mechanisms are only about 30%. And so we're not really sure where that other physical evaporation is going to come from. And that's the Bureau's decision on whose water will be reduced due to that other 70% of evaporation. The emergency pump project is now in operation. We are evaluating when we might need to relocate the project to deeper levels of the lake. The current projections are that it would need to be relocated by June next summer, and that would be about $750,000 capital costs that would be shared among the member units that use the facility. Downstream water rights occurred in August and September. Those are now complete. That was over 10,000 acre feet that were released from the reservoir. Our fish water releases, the Bureau has a proposed action on how to reduce the fish releases that was submitted to NIMFS several months ago. We have not heard any approval on that, so there has been no change in the fish releases. And every month, the Kachuma member units staff get together and talk about our projected monthly deliveries from Kachuma now that we're down to the very last drops. We want to really see how agencies are planning to use Kachuma water and what the rest of their supply mix looks like so that we can see any issues coming before they actually occur. Drought response capital projects. Our recycled water facility is just about complete. We expect it to be online and producing water the end of this month and going into the system early November. We'll be doing some public outreach to our recycled water customers. And we've been working hard on the IRWIM grant, which was over $1 million in funding for that project. We have 2 groundwater projects that we're currently working on. High School Well, expected to be complete by summer of 2016, and Hope Well cleaning expected to be complete by spring of 2016. I'm kind of breezing through this, so if you have any questions, let me know. And our desal project status in notice to proceed was issued in August. Site demo began in September, and we're working on procurement of long lead time items. And water is projected to be in the system September 2016 with final contract completion following shortly after. And now I will turn it over to our acting water conservation coordinator, Madeline Ward.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I just have a few slides to share with you of some of our indoor water conservation devices. We do have a free showerhead program that we are running in conjunction with the county. In the city, these are available at the 630 Garden Street location at the Public Works counter. This is a 1.5 gallon per minute showerhead, and it is WaterSense certified. And if you're not familiar with WaterSense, it's an EPA certification program similar to Energy Star. This is an exchange program, so customers do need to bring in an old showerhead to receive a new one. We don't have a cap on the amount of showerheads anyone can receive, but you do need to bring in an equal amount of the old showerheads. To date, we've distributed about 80 at our own counter and about 570 countywide. Also, what Mr. Casey is distributing to you are aerators and dye tablets, and I'll give a quick rundown on those. These are bathroom faucet aerators. They're rated at 1.0 gallons per minute. Most of you probably have an aerator existing on your bathroom. You can simply unscrew the old one. These can be male or female threaded. There's 2 washers in there, and you simply screw the new one back on. Also, you have toilet tank leak detecting dye tablet packets, and these are also available in the back of the room where people pick up their speaker slips. We have dye tablets and aerators for anyone else to take here in the room, and I'll explain how to use the dye tablets. So there's 2 main ways that toilets tend to leak here in the city and nationwide, and we do estimate that about 20% of all toilets are currently leaking, and generally it's very silent. So one of the best ways to test is to actually dye the water. I'm going to use this little. Okay. So what you do with your dye tablets is you just need 1 per toilet. You open up the tank, drop 1 in the water, and it will dye this water blue. It's important to let everyone know in your household that you're doing a science experiment so they don't flush the toilet and ruin the experiment. You need to wait about 10 or 15 minutes and then check the color in the bowl. If there's blue in the bowl, that means it is snuck from the tank into the bowl without you telling it to. The way you tell the water to go in is obviously by flushing. So this is a silent leak. This is really the best way to tell if this is happening. And what's happening is that this red flapper, this rubber flapper, they're usually black or blue or red. That means it's leaking. It could either have something stuck in it or it might just be warped with age. So it's best to replace that with the exact make and model of your toilet and then test it again to make sure it's fixed. While you're back in the tank looking at the water level and putting in the tablets, it's also good to check the overflow tube. So that's this little tube here and here. You want to check the water level in the back of the tank to make sure it's a full inch below that tube. Because at night when the water pressure rises, the pressure in the tank will rise and it'll cause the water to spill over while you're sleeping, and you won't know that it's actually running down the tube and straight into the sewer. There's many ways to adjust these down. I recommend that you type in the make and model of your toilet and look at a YouTube video, and it'll explain how to reduce the water level in the back of your tank. So again, those are available in the back of the room, as well as a flyer that explains how to check for all these leaks in the toilets. Wow. And we're available for any questions.
All right, thank you. Let's. We have 1 public comment speaker slip, and then we'll go back to questions. Phil Walker. Is Phil still here? He took off? Okay, take off. Okay, Mr. Hart, did you have... Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you for the stuff. This is great. I was meaning to do this, so this has short-circuited my list. Is there potential for the purchased water and the that's up in San Luis Reservoir getting stuck in the lake if the level drops to the point where we can't move the pump?
I have not heard. I did ask at CCWA the last time I was there whether there is a concern in actually being able to get water out of San Luis over to Lake Cachuma. That is not a concern as far as we know from CCWA. Where we have our delivery concerns is once it gets to Cachuma, being able to pump it out of the lake to the south coast.
So that still is a problem. We do not have unanimity on the COMB board about potentially moving the pump to a lower elevation in the lake?
It hasn't been authorized yet.
Okay, so the real catastrophic circumstances would be that agreement doesn't occur and we're not able to get this purchased water that's up in San Luis Reservoir, or even that it gets sent to Kachuma and evaporates before we're able to access it.
That would be a concern, and we might want to consider other avenues of completing the project because it's such a critical facility for the South Coast.
So are there other ways to do that without unanimous consent?
There may be a possible other funding mechanisms.
Did you
Looks
want to
like
add something to that, Mr.
Councilman
White?
Well, just that is absolutely a topic of conversation at COMB, and Mr. Francisco may be able to chime in here as well, but that I speak personally to say that it would seem possible that funds could come not from COMB to make that happen. And obviously, in a desperate situation, that would be the funding would occur, would come from somewhere. But
so
that's the veto power that you're talking about, is that $1 million, any $1 million expenditure at COMB needs a unanimous vote. And the total cost, again, and there's dispute about what constitutes total cost, but the total cost of moving the barge can be alleged to be $1 million, or it could be, as our staff has pointed out, as little as $750,000.
I see. So it's not a bureau issue. It's not a federal permission issue. It's just a money issue for COMB.
And it's a inter-agency issue.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not involving the bureau. Correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Well, you had a great audience to get your devices in the back of the room, your dye tablets and all that. Thank you very much.